My name is Elena Torres, and at 33 years old, I'd learned to make myself small, not physically. I was still the same 5'6" woman who'd graduated from Arizona State with a degree in graphic design, but emotionally, spiritually, in all the ways that actually mattered. And I'd been married to Derek Morrison for 4 years, and for most of that time, I'd been slowly disappearing, and it hadn't started that way. When we met at a mutual friend's wedding in Phoenix, Derek had been charming, attentive, the kind of man who remembered small details and made you feel seen. He worked in commercial real estate, wore expensive watches, and had the confidence of someone who'd never had to question his place in the world. And I'd been working as a freelance designer, cobbling together enough clients to pay rent on a studio apartment in Tempe. My parents had died in a car accident my junior year of college, leaving me with student loan debt and a profound sense of being alone in the world. Derek had felt like home, like safety, like someone who would finally make me part of something. NHI's proposal came 8 months after we met, a surprise during a weekend in Sedona, down on one knee at sunset with a ring that probably cost more than my car. I'd said yes without hesitation, already imagining the family I'd be gaining, the belonging I'd been craving since my parents died. And I should have paid more attention to the warning signs. Derek's mother, Patricia Morrison, had made her opinion clear from the start. She was a woman who wore pearls to brunch and judgment like a second skin, everything about her polished and precisely controlled. At our first family dinner, she'd looked me up and down with the expression of someone inspecting produce at the grocery store. "Derek tells me you do design work?" she'd said, the pause before design work loaded with skepticism. "I'm a graphic designer. I work with small businesses mostly. Branding, websites, marketing materials." "How entrepreneurial," Patricia had said, in a tone that made it clear she thought entrepreneurial was code for unemployed. Derek's father, Richard, had been kinder but distant, the kind of man who smiled and nodded but never quite focused on you. He was a retired investment banker who spent most dinners checking his phone and making vague sounds of agreement whenever Patricia spoke. NBUT. The real surprise had been Derek's younger sister, Maya. Nia Morrison was 26 when I met her, 3 years younger than Derek and me. The family story was that she'd suffered a severe stroke at 19 after a bad reaction to medication. The stroke had left her unable to walk or speak, or so I'd been told. NSHE lived with Patricia and Richard in their sprawling house in Scottsdale, confined to a wheelchair, communicating through an alphabet board and occasional nods or headshakes. Patricia treated her like a fragile doll, simultaneously protective and resentful, as if Maya's disability was both a burden and a badge of martyrdom. Patricia wore proudly, "Someone has to care for her," Patricia would say at every family gathering, her tone suggesting she was a saint among women. Not everyone is willing to make such sacrifices. In those early days, I'd felt genuinely sorry for Maya. To be trapped in your own body, unable to express yourself, dependent on a mother who seemed to view you as both blessing and curse. It seemed like a terrible fate. And I'd tried to connect with her, sitting beside her wheelchair during family dinners, asking yes or no questions she could answer with nods. She'd always seemed intelligent, her dark eyes sharp and alert, following conversations with an intensity that suggested she understood far more than anyone gave her credit for. There was something about the way she looked at me that I couldn't quite interpret. Not pity, exactly, but something like recognition. Like she saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. And after the wedding, Derek and I moved into a townhouse in Tempe, close enough to his parents that Patricia could drop by whenever she felt like it, which was often. I'd given up my freelance work at Derek's suggestion. The conversation happened on a Tuesday morning in March. I'd been making Derek's coffee the way he liked it. 2 sugars, splash of cream, microwaved for exactly 30 seconds because he preferred it slightly warmer than fresh brewed. When he came into the kitchen with his phone in hand and an uncomfortable expression. "Elena, I need to talk to you about something." NMY stomach clenched immediately. Over 4 years, I'd learned to read Derek's tones, and this one meant I wasn't going to like what came next. "Okay," I said carefully, setting the coffee mug on the counter. "My family is taking a trip to Cabo next week. Mom's been planning it for months. She wants to celebrate my dad's retirement properly. 5 days, all-inclusive resort, the whole thing." "That sounds nice," I said, waiting for the invitation that my gut told me wasn't coming. Derek didn't quite meet my eyes. "The thing is, it's just family this time. Mom was pretty specific about that. NTHE words hit like a slap. I'm your wife. I am family. I know. I know. But Mom, she's been stressed about Maya, about coordinating her care during the trip. And we thought, it might be easier if you stayed here and looked after Maya instead. And I stared at him, genuinely unable to process what I was hearing. You want me to stay home and babysit your sister while you and your family vacation in Mexico? Don't say it like that. Maya's comfortable with you. Mom says you're the only one besides her who really understands how to care for her properly. So I'm good enough to be Maya's caretaker, but not good enough to be considered family on a vacation? Derek's jaw tightened. Elena, don't make this difficult. The decision's already made. Mom booked the resort, the flights, everything. You're not on the reservation. When were you planning to tell me? Or were you just going to leave your passport on the counter and act surprised when I asked about it? That's not fair. Not fair. Derek, we've been married 4 years, and your mother still doesn't consider me family. And do you agree with her? I don't agree with her. I'm just trying to keep the peace. Can't you do the same? 5 days, Elena. That's all I'm asking. And I wanted to scream, to throw his perfectly prepared coffee at the wall, to pack a bag and leave right then. Instead, I did what I'd learned to do. I swallowed my anger and made myself smaller. Fine, I whispered. I'll stay and watch Maya. Thank you. Derek picked up his coffee and took a sip, wincing. This is cold. Can you remake it? And I remade the coffee. I remade myself every day, whittling away pieces until there was almost nothing left. NTHAT afternoon. Patricia called to coordinate care instructions. She spent 45 minutes on the phone detailing Maya's schedule. Her medications, which she didn't actually take but Patricia insisted on. Her dietary restrictions, which seemed to change based on Patricia's mood. And the proper way to transfer her from wheelchair to bed. I'm trusting you with my daughter, Patricia said, her tone making it clear this was a test I'd probably fail. Maya is precious to us. I expect you to treat her with the utmost care. Of course, I said, my jaw aching from holding back everything I wanted to say. And Elena? Don't bother calling Derek during the trip unless it's an emergency. He needs this vacation. He's been so stressed at work. NTHE implication was clear. I was the source of that stress. And after she hung up, I sat in the kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing. 4 years of marriage, and I wasn't even invited on a family vacation. 4 years of trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law, and I was still just the help. NMY phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Thanks for being understanding about the trip. I'll bring you back something nice. NI didn't respond. NTHAT Friday. I drove Derek to the airport. Patricia and Richard were already there, checking in for their flight. Patricia barely glanced at me, too busy organizing her carry-on bags with the precision of a military operation. Derek kissed my cheek perfunctorily. Take good care of Maya. Call if there's an emergency, but try not to worry. Everything will be fine. Have fun, I managed. I watched them go through security. My husband, my in-laws, off to celebrate family togetherness without the inconvenient presence of the daughter-in-law, who wasn't quite family enough. And on the drive to Patricia and Richard's house, I practiced deep breathing to keep from crying. 5 days. I could survive 5 days alone in that massive, cold house with Maya, and then I'd, go back to my townhouse and wait for Derek to come home with a cheap souvenir, and no apology? I parked in the circular driveway and sat for a moment, gathering strength. Then I grabbed my overnight bag and went inside. NTHE house was silent, all 3,500 square feet of it, decorated in Patricia's preferred style of sterile elegance. Everything matched, nothing was comfortable, and the overall effect was of a furniture showroom, rather than a home where people actually lived. And I found Maya in the sunroom, sitting in her wheelchair by the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pool. She was wearing a soft gray sweater and had a blanket over her lap despite the Phoenix heat. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Hi, Maya, I said softly, setting my bag down. Looks like it's just us for the next few days. NSHE turned her head slightly, those intelligent eyes fixing on me with an intensity that always made me feel like she was reading my thoughts. I pulled up a chair beside her. I know your mom left about 1,000 instructions, but honestly, I think we can just relax. If there's anything you need, just let me know. Naya's hand moved slowly to her alphabet board, pointing at letters with deliberate precision. I watched, expecting something simple like yes or okay, and instead she spelled THEYLIED, TOYO uni, frowned, confused. About the trip, NSHE shook her head, pointing again, ABOUTEVERYTHIN gen. Before I could respond, before I could even process what she was suggesting, Maya did something that made my entire world tilt sideways. NSHE stood up, NNO wobbling, no assistance, no struggle. She simply pushed herself out of the wheelchair and stood on two perfectly functional legs, stretching like someone who'd been sitting too long. And then she spoke. God, that chair is uncomfortable, Maya said, her voice clear and strong. I've been dying to stand up for 3 hours, and I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare as Maya walked normally, easily, across the sunroom to close the door. Elena, before you freak out completely, let me explain something. I'm not disabled. I never was. It's all been an act. What? The word came out as barely more than a whisper. Maya sat down on the couch, sat normally, crossing her legs, looking like any 26-year-old woman, and nothing like the helpless invalid I'd been told she was. The stroke story? Complete fiction. Patricia made it up when I was 19, because I tried to move out, tried to go to college in California. She couldn't control me anymore, so she found a way to make me dependent. She convinced everyone, doctors, family, friends, that I'd had a stroke and was left permanently disabled. But how? How is that possible? Patricia's very good at lying when it serves her purpose. And it's easier than you'd think to fake a disability when everyone around you wants to believe in your mother's martyrdom. Maya's expression hardened. She drugged me at first, kept me sedated for months while she built the narrative. By the time I was clear-headed enough to object, everyone believed her story. If I'd tried to tell the truth, they would have thought I was delusional. So you just pretended? For 7 years? I learned that being disabled gave me a kind of invisibility. People talked in front of me like I wasn't there. They revealed things they'd never say if they thought I could understand. And Patricia? She got to play the devoted mother while having complete control over my life, my trust fund, everything. And I sank into a chair, my legs unable to hold me anymore. Why are you telling me this now? Naya leaned forward, her eyes intense. Because you need to know who you're really married to, Elena. You need to see what this family actually is. And because while they're in Cabo celebrating their little vacation, they're planning something that's going to destroy your life. What are you talking about? Derek's having an affair. Has been for 6 months. Her name is Simone Carr. She works at his company. Patricia knows. Richard knows. They're all in on it, and they've been helping Derek plan to divorce you in a way that leaves you with nothing. NTHE room spun. That's not. Derek wouldn't. Nelena, I've been sitting in that wheelchair in the living room for 4 years while they talked about you like you were trash. I've listened to Patricia coach Derek on how to document your mental instability to contest any divorce settlement. I've heard them laugh about how easy it was to isolate you, to make you dependent, to turn you into the perfect victim. Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and angry. You're lying. I wish I was. Maya pulled out a phone, not the basic emergency phone Patricia had provided for her, but a smartphone. I've been recording conversations for 2 years, building evidence. I was waiting for the right moment to expose them. And this trip? This is it. They think you're here playing nursemaid while they're in Cabo. What they don't know is that we're going to be in Cabo too. What? I have money. Real money that Patricia doesn't control. My father, Patricia's first husband, left me a trust fund that matured when I turned 25. Patricia doesn't know I can access it. I've been saving, planning, waiting for the perfect opportunity. She pulled out an envelope from between the couch cushions. 2 plane tickets to Cabo, hotel reservation at the same resort where they're staying. and enough evidence to destroy Derek's divorce plans. And I stared at the tickets, my mind unable to process this rapid series of revelations. You want me to spy on my husband? I want you to see the truth. I want you to catch them red-handed. And I want you to finally stand up for yourself, instead of letting this family grind you into nothing. Maya's voice softened. Elena, I've watched you disappear over 4 years. The woman Derek married, creative, independent, full of life. She's almost gone. If you don't fight back now, she'll be completely erased. I looked down at my hands, at the wedding ring that suddenly felt like a shackle. 4 years of making myself small. 4 years of seeking approval I'd never receive. 4 years of being told I was family while being treated like staff. When do we leave? I heard myself ask. Maya smiled. Tomorrow morning. Pack light and bring your spine. You're going to need it. We left for the airport at 5 a.m., early enough that the Phoenix sky was still dark. Maya actually drove, with a confidence that came from years of sneaking out when Patricia thought she was sleeping. She had a car registered under a fake name, parked in a storage unit 3 miles from the house. I've been planning my escape for 2 years, she explained as we merged onto the highway. Building my evidence, securing my money, waiting for the perfect moment. This trip was a gift. 5 days where Patricia can't monitor me, can't control where I go or what I do. And I was still processing the revelation from the night before. Every time I looked at Maya, walking, talking, driving, my brain stuttered, unable to reconcile this capable woman with the helpless invalid I'd known for 4 years. How did you keep it secret? I asked. Patricia was with you constantly. Not as constantly as you'd think. She had her charity events, her social calendar. And I got very good at playing the part. Slumping in the wheelchair, not making eye contact, letting her do everything for me. The more helpless I seemed, the more superior she felt. Maya's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Do you know how many times I wanted to jump up and scream at her? To tell her exactly what I thought of her manipulation and control? Why didn't you? Because I needed documentation. I needed evidence. If I'd revealed myself too early, Patricia would have found a way to spin it, claimed I'd been faking the whole time to avoid responsibility, or that I was mentally unstable. She's very good at controlling narratives. Maya glanced at me. Just like she controlled yours. NTHE words stung because they were true. And at the airport, I kept expecting someone to recognize us, to question why Maya was walking and talking. But we were just 2 women among thousands of travelers, completely anonymous. NTHE flight to Cabo was 3 hours. Maya used the time to show me everything she'd compiled. Audio recordings, videos, financial documents, text messages she'd intercepted from Derek's computer when he'd left it unattended during family dinners. NTHE evidence was damning. Derek had met Simone Carr 8 months ago at a real estate conference in Las Vegas. Their affair had started immediately, progressing from flirtation to hotel rooms to regular meetings disguised as work events. Patricia had known from the beginning. Derek had actually asked her advice on how to manage the situation. Your mother-in-law helped plan your husband's affair, Maya said flatly. She connected him with her divorce attorney, coached him on how to document your alleged emotional issues, even suggested ways to make you seem unstable if you fought the divorce. NTHE recordings confirmed it. I listened to Patricia's voice, cold and calculating. The key is to establish a pattern. Document every time she seems upset or emotional. Keep receipts for any purchases that seem excessive. Build a narrative of instability. And Derek, what if she fights it? Patricia, she won't. Elena doesn't have any money of her own, no job, no real support system. We made sure of that. She'll take whatever settlement you offer because she'll be desperate. And I had to excuse myself to the airplane bathroom, where I locked the door and cried as quietly as possible. 4 years. 4 years of devotion, of trying to be the perfect wife, of sacrificing my career and identity. And all along, they'd been building a case to discard me. When I returned to my seat, Maya handed me a tissue without comment, and, "Why did they leave you alone with me?" I asked. "If they're planning all this, why risk you overhearing? Because they think I'm too disabled to understand." Patricia's convinced herself that I have the mental capacity of a child. She literally talks about her schemes right in front of me, like I'm a piece of furniture. Maya's smile was bitter. That's been my advantage. People underestimate what I hear, what I understand, what I'm capable of. NWE landed in Cabo just after noon, the Mexican sun blazing and the air thick with salt and heat. Maya had booked us into a smaller hotel about a mile from the resort, where Derek and his family were staying, close enough to observe, far enough to avoid accidental encounters. Our room had a view of the ocean, and for a moment I stood at the window, overwhelmed by everything. 24 hours ago, I'd been preparing to spend a lonely week as Maya's caretaker. Now I was in Mexico, with a woman who wasn't disabled, about to spy on a husband who was cheating on me with his mother's blessing. "Elena," Maya said gently, "I know this is a lot. If you want to back out, if you just want to enjoy the beach for a few days and go home, I'll understand. But if we're going to do this, if we're going to expose them, we need to do it right." I turned from the window. "What's the plan?" Maya pulled out her tablet. "According to the resort itinerary, Patricia emailed me, thinking I couldn't read it. They have dinner reservations tonight at the resort's main restaurant at 7 p.m. Derek told Simone to book a room at the same resort under her own name. Patricia approved the expense. She's here? The other woman is actually on this family vacation? Patricia orchestrated it. She thinks you're so controlled, so broken, that you'd never think to check. And even if you did find out later, you'd be too scared to do anything about it. Rage, hot and clean, burned through me. What do we do? Tonight, we have dinner at the same restaurant. We dress up, we look amazing, and we let Derek see exactly what he threw away. Then we watch, we document. And when we have enough evidence, we confront them publicly, where they can't spin the narrative or make you seem crazy. I thought about the Elena who'd existed before Derek. Confident, creative, independent. Then I thought about the Elena I'd become. Small, scared, constantly apologizing. "Let's destroy them," I said. Maya grinned. "Now you're talking." We spent the afternoon preparing like generals before battle. Maya had anticipated this moment, packing clothes she'd secretly bought online and had delivered to a friend's house. A friend Patricia didn't know existed. NFOR me, she'd brought an emerald green dress that hugged every curve, designer heels I'd never have purchased for myself, and jewelry that caught the light. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. This woman looked powerful, elegant, completely in control. Naya wore black, sleek, sophisticated, with her hair down in waves instead of the plain ponytail Patricia always insisted on. She looked stunning. Nothing like the diminished person I'd known in that wheelchair. "Ready?" she asked, and I took a deep breath. Ready? NTHE Resort's main restaurant was open air, overlooking the ocean with ambient lighting and live music. We arrived at 6:45, early enough to secure a table with clear sightlines to the entire dining area. Maya had called ahead, requesting a specific spot, and the hostess led us there without question. And from our table, we could see everything. Nat 7:05, Derek arrived with his parents. Patricia wore a designer dress and her signature pearls. Richard looked uncomfortable in a button-down shirt, clearly wishing he was back in his resort room. And Derek looked happy, relaxed, laughing at something Patricia said as they were seated at a table across the restaurant. "Where's Simone?" I whispered, "Watch." Maya said. Nat 7:12, a woman approached their table. She was younger than me, maybe 28, with blonde hair and a red dress that screamed expensive. She kissed Derek on the cheek, sat down beside him, and Patricia greeted her like an old friend. NMY husband put his arm around another woman while his mother smiled approvingly. And I gripped my water glass so hard, I thought it might shatter. Maya said, "We need you calm and focused. Falling apart helps them." NSHE was right. I forced myself to breathe, to observe, to become the documentarian of my own betrayal. Derek and Simone were openly affectionate, his hand on her thigh, her fingers playing with his hair. Patricia beamed at them, like a proud mother. Richard mostly stared at his phone, occasionally looking up to nod at whatever was being said. Maya had her phone out, recording discreetly. "Audio and video," she murmured. "All admissible in court if we need it." They ordered expensive wine. They laughed. They toasted something I couldn't hear. And through it all, Derek never once looked like a man who'd left his wife at home. He looked like a man on vacation with his girlfriend and approving parents. "And how long do we wait?" I asked. "And until dessert." That's when people get comfortable, when they stop watching their words. Maya's eyes never left their table. Patricia will say something incriminating. She always does when she thinks she's safe. NWE ordered our own meal, though I could barely taste anything. My entire focus was on that table across the restaurant, on the elaborate performance of my marriage's ending. And at 8:30, their dessert arrived. Patricia ordered another glass of wine, and her voice carried across the restaurant. She'd never been good at modulating volume when she was drinking. "I still think we should wait until after the trip to start proceedings," Patricia said, loud enough that nearby tables glanced over. "Let Elena have a few more weeks of thinking everything is fine." Derek laughed. "She already thinks everything is fine. She has no idea." Simone, her voice sugary. "Is she really that clueless?" "Completely," Derek said. "She does whatever I tell her. It's pathetic, honestly." Patricia. "Well, we trained her well. That's what happens when you marry someone with no family, no support system. They become whatever you need them to be." NTHE casual cruelty of it. The pride in their voices as they discussed breaking me ignited something I thought was dead. I stood up. Naya's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. "Not yet. Let me." Before I could argue, Maya stood and walked across the restaurant. Every step was confident, powerful, completely at odds with the helpless invalid they all thought she was. NSHE walked right up to their table and stopped. Patricia saw her first. Her wine glass froze halfway to her lips, her face going pale. "Maya? Surprise, mother." Maya's voice carried across the suddenly quiet restaurant. "Bet you didn't expect to see me walking, did you?" Derek's face went through a remarkable transformation. Confusion, shock, fear, all in the space of seconds. "What? How am I walking? How am I talking?" "Well, Derek, that's the funny thing. I never stopped. The stroke, the disability, all of it was bullshit. And I've been sitting in that wheelchair, in your living room for 4 years, listening to every word you said. Every plan you made. Every scheme you concocted." Patricia tried to recover. "Maya, sweetheart, you're confused. You're not well. Let me— Don't you dare." Maya cut her off, her voice ice. "I'm done pretending for you. Done playing the helpless daughter, so you could control my trust fund and play martyr. You drugged me, mother. You convinced everyone I was brain damaged, so you could maintain your grip on my life. Well, guess what? I've been documenting everything. The financial manipulation, the medical fraud, all of it." And Richard had gone completely white. "Maya, if you just—" "Shut up, Richard. You knew. You've always known. And you did nothing because challenging Patricia was too much work." NTHE entire restaurant was staring now. Diners had put down their forks. Waiters had stopped serving. Everyone drawn to the drama unfolding at table 6. Maya turned to Simone. "And you must be the mistress. Simone, right? How does it feel knowing you're sleeping with a man whose entire divorce strategy is based on making his wife seem crazy? Because that's the plan. In case Derek didn't mention it. Paint Elena as unstable, get the marriage annulled, and make sure she walks away with nothing." Simone looked at Derek, confusion written across her face. "What is she talking about?" "Nothing. She's lying." I stood up and walked over, joining Maya at their table. "But I'm sure you knew that. You've been having an affair with a married man while his mother cheered you on." "How progressive." Patricia tried to regain control. "Elena, this is completely inappropriate. You're making a scene." "Good," I said, my voice stronger than I'd heard it in years. "I want to make a scene. I want everyone in this restaurant to know what kind of people you are. Derek, you left me at home to take care of your disabled sister while you vacation with your mistress. Patricia, you've been coaching your son on how to divorce his wife in the most financially devastating way possible. And all of you conspired to isolate me, control me, and ultimately discard me like trash." Derek stood up, trying for damage control. "Elena, you're being hysterical. Can we please discuss this privately?" "No," I said. "We're done discussing things privately. We're done with you controlling the narrative. Maya and I have recordings, Derek. Hours of them. You, Patricia, planning my destruction. I have documentation of the affair, of the financial manipulation, of every lie you've told. Naya held up her phone. All admissible in court. And trust me, we're going to use every second of it. Patricia's face had gone from pale to red. You ungrateful little. Watch yourself, mother. Maya warned. You're already facing potential charges for medical fraud and financial elder abuse. Don't add threats to the list. The restaurant manager appeared, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. Derek tried to pull him aside, probably planning to spin some story about crazy women causing drama. NBUT, I'd stopped caring about controlling the narrative. I'd stopped caring about being polite, about making people comfortable, about being small enough to fit into the box they'd built for me. Nalena. Derek tried again, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I knew so well. Let's just go back to the room and talk about this rationally. I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm done. We're done. When we get back to Phoenix, I'm filing for divorce. And, unlike your carefully planned version, mine will include all the evidence of your affair and your mother's conspiracy. You're going to learn what it actually costs to betray someone. Simone, finally finding her voice. Derek, what is she talking about? You said your marriage was already over, that you were just waiting for the paperwork. He lied. Maya said cheerfully. He lies about everything. That's kind of his thing. Security had arrived now. 3 men in resort polo shirts looking deeply uncomfortable with the high-drama situation they'd been called to manage. Patricia tried to use her authority voice on them. These women are harassing us. I want them removed immediately. Actually, one of the security guards said, looking at Maya, you're the ones causing a disturbance. Several guests have complained. I'm going to have to ask your party to leave. We're hotel guests, Patricia sputtered. We have a right, and they've lost their right to continue dining service due to the disruption. Please settle your bill and return to your rooms. NTHE humiliation on Derek's face was almost worth 4 years of emotional abuse. Almost. And Maya and I walked out of the restaurant with our heads high, leaving them to deal with the bill, the stares, and the whispers that would follow them for the rest of their vacation. In the hallway outside, Maya turned to me with a grin. How did that feel? Like breathing for the first time in years, I said. And I meant it. Move out, Maya said immediately. I have an apartment already rented under my real name, the one I legally changed 2 years ago when I got access to my trust. Patricia doesn't know about it. The day we land in Phoenix, I'm getting my things from that house and never going back. What about your mom? Patricia stopped being my mom when she drugged me and told the world I was brain damaged. She's just a woman who used me for sympathy points and financial control. Maya took a sip of her margarita. I'm done being her prop. I'm done being anyone's prop. I'm scared, I admitted, of going back, facing Derek, dealing with divorce lawyers and division of assets. I don't even know where to start rebuilding my life. You start exactly where you are. Scared, angry, but free. That's the foundation. Maya looked at me seriously. Elena, you're 33 years old. You have a college degree, marketable skills, and 4 years of experience surviving in a hostile environment. That's made you stronger than you realize. I gave up my career for him, so you rebuild it. Better this time, on your own terms. You know what you don't want now? That's half the battle. When we landed in Phoenix, Derek was waiting at baggage claim. His face was haggard, his expensive suit rumpled, and his eyes desperate. Nalena, please. Can we just talk? Naya stepped between us. She has nothing to say to you. All communication goes through her lawyer. This is between me and my wife, your soon-to-be ex-wife. And if you take one step closer, I'm calling security. Maya's voice was steel. You don't get to intimidate her anymore. Derek looked at me over Maya's shoulder. Elena, don't let her poison you against me. We can fix this. I made a mistake. But we have 4 years together. 4 years you spent planning to discard me, I said, finding my voice. 4 years your mother spent teaching you how to gaslight me. I heard the recordings, Derek. I know exactly how much our marriage meant to you. That's not, I never meant. Go home to Simone, I said, or go back to Scottsdale. I don't care. But don't follow us. Don't call me. And don't try to manipulate me one more time. It's over. NWE walked away. And for the first time in 4 years, I didn't look back to see if he was following. Naya dropped me at a extended stay hotel I'd booked online. I couldn't go back to the townhouse yet, not until I'd secured legal protection and had time to think. She promised to check on me the next day, then drove off to collect her own belongings before Patricia could interfere. NTHAT night, alone in a sterile hotel room, I finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. I cried for the 4 years I'd lost, for the career I'd abandoned, for the Elena who'd been so desperate for family that she'd let herself be consumed by the Morrisons' dysfunction. NBUTI also felt something unexpected: relief. The performance was over. I didn't have to pretend anymore, didn't have to make myself small, didn't have to seek approval from people who'd never respect me. NTHE next morning, Gabriela Ramos called. "I've filed for divorce on your behalf. We're citing Derek's infidelity and requesting equitable division of marital assets, including his portion of the townhouse down payment that came from your inheritance from your parents." I had almost forgotten about that, I admitted. When we'd bought the townhouse, I'd contributed $40,000 from the life insurance payout after my parents died. Derek had convinced me to put the title in his name alone for tax purposes. "That was fraud," Gabriella said bluntly. "He took your inheritance and excluded you from the title. We're gonna get that back, plus half of everything acquired during the marriage. I've also filed a protective order preventing him from liquidating assets or running up joint credit cards. And what about Patricia? The thing she did to Maya?" "Maya's filing separately. Adult Protective Services is investigating the medical fraud allegations. If they find sufficient evidence, Patricia could face criminal charges." And over the next 3 months, my life transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Derek fought every point, his lawyers trying to paint me as unstable, gold-digging, ungrateful. But Gabriella was better. NSHE presented the recordings of Patricia coaching Derek on how to manufacture evidence of my instability. She showed the timeline of the affair, proving Derek's infidelity was ongoing and deliberate. She documented every dollar I'd contributed to the marriage that Derek had tried to claim as solely his. NTHE judge was not amused by Derek's tactics. "Morrison, your attempt to defraud your wife of her rightful assets, combined with documented infidelity and conspiracy with your mother to manipulate divorce proceedings, has seriously damaged your credibility in this court," Judge Sandra Reyes said during one particularly heated hearing. "I'm inclined to award Mrs. Morrison far more than the standard equitable division, given the egregious nature of your conduct." Derek's face went pale. His expensive lawyer looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. In the end, I was awarded the townhouse, half of Derek's retirement accounts, 3 years of spousal support, and the full $40,000 I'd contributed to the down payment with interest. Derek was also required to pay my legal fees. And Patricia's situation was even more dramatic. The investigation into Maya's case uncovered financial irregularities, unauthorized withdrawals from Maya's trust, forged signatures, and documentation of Patricia's control extending far beyond appropriate guardianship. She was charged with financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult and faced potential prison time. NTHE medical fraud was harder to prove after 7 years, but Maya's testimony combined with expert analysis of the original medical records raised enough questions that Patricia's medical power of attorney was revoked, and she was banned from serving as anyone's guardian. Richard filed for divorce 3 months after everything came to light. Apparently, facing potential criminal liability made him finally willing to challenge his wife. NSIX months after that dinner in Cabo, I stood in my new apartment, a bright, airy space in downtown Phoenix with big windows and exposed brick. I'd slowly been rebuilding my design business, reaching out to old clients, building a new portfolio, remembering who I'd been before Derek. Maya helped me move in, carrying boxes up the stairs with the strength of someone who'd been secretly working out for years while everyone thought she was incapacitated. "This place is perfect for you," she said, looking around. "Very you. Not at all," Patricia approved. And I laughed. "That's the highest compliment possible." "How are you feeling, really?" I considered the question honestly. "Lighter, angrier than I expected. I keep finding new things to be furious about, ways they manipulated me that I didn't see at the time. But also hopeful. I'm rebuilding myself, you know? Finding the Elena who existed before Derek, but older and wiser. You're doing amazing," Maya said. Seriously. I've watched you transform over these months. You're not the same woman who sat in my mother's house asking permission to breathe. Neither are you. How's the graphic design program? Naya had enrolled in a design program at ASU, finally pursuing the education Patricia had denied her. She was also working with a therapist specializing in trauma recovery, processing 7 years of forced invalidism. It's good. Hard, but good. I'm learning that I don't have to pretend to be smaller than I am to be safe. Patricia's control was based on my cooperation with her fiction. Once I stopped cooperating, she had no power. Do you ever regret not exposing her sooner? Sometimes, but I needed the evidence. I needed to be sure that when I made my move, she couldn't talk her way out of it. Maya set down a box and looked at me seriously. Elena, you saved me as much as I saved you. If you hadn't married Derek, if you hadn't been so kind to me when everyone else saw me as a burden, I might never have had the courage to break free. We saved each other, I corrected. NWE ordered pizza and sat on my new balcony, watching the sunset paint Phoenix in shades of orange and gold. My phone buzzed with a text from Gabriella. Final divorce decree signed by judge. It's officially over. Congratulations on your freedom. And I showed Maya the message, and we raised our soda cans in a toast. To freedom. Maya said, to choosing ourselves. I added to never being small again. NWE drank to that. 2 women who'd spent years being underestimated, controlled, and dismissed, now building lives entirely on our own terms. The gallery opening was everything I dreamed of and nothing I'd imagined. My design work was displayed on white walls, each piece telling a story of transformation. From the early safe work I'd done before Derek, to the dark, angry pieces I'd created during the divorce, to the bright, bold designs of my new life. NTHE Gallery was packed. Clients who'd become friends, fellow designers, Maya and her partner Kenji, Alex, and a dozen other people who'd been part of my rebuilding. And I wore a red dress. Bold, unapologetic, exactly the kind of thing Patricia would have said was too much. It was perfect. And Elena Torres. The gallery owner, Marcus Webb, waved me over to a small group. These are the collectors from the Seattle firm I mentioned. They're interested in commissioning a piece for their headquarters. And I spent 20 minutes discussing vision and budget, closing a deal that would pay more than I'd made in my entire first year freelancing. When they left, I found Alex at the wine table. You're amazing, he said, kissing my cheek. Watching you work a room, completely confident in your talent. It's incredible. I'm still not used to it. Sometimes I hear Patricia's voice in my head, telling me I'm too loud, too bold, too much. And then I do it anyway. That's the difference. Naya appeared with Kenji, both of them grinning. Guess what? 2 of your pieces sold. The gallery owner is going to cut you a check tonight. And I laughed, overwhelmed. This is insane. This is what you deserve, Maya corrected. This is what happens when you stop making yourself small. Later that night, after the gallery closed and we'd celebrated with too much champagne, Alex and I walked along the waterfront. Portland glittered around us, the city I'd chosen, the home I'd built. I have something to ask you, Alex said, stopping near a bench overlooking the river. My heart jumped, but I kept my voice calm. Okay, these past 3 years with you have been the best of my life. You're brilliant, strong, funny, and you've taught me what it means to truly see your partner, not who you want them to be. NHE pulled out a small box and I felt tears start. And I'm not Derek, he continued. I will never ask you to be smaller, quieter, less than you are. I will never prioritize my family's opinions over your well-being. I will never, ever take you for granted. He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a small diamond. Elena Torres, will you marry me? And I looked at him, really looked at him. Alex, who'd listened to my nightmares about Derek without trying to fix me. Alex, who celebrated my successes without resentment. Alex, who'd met Maya and immediately understood how important she was to me. Yes, I said, but I need you to know something first. Anything. If we do this, I'm keeping my name. I'm keeping my independence. I'm keeping my career. And if you ever make me feel like I need your permission to exist, I'm gone. No second chances. I wouldn't expect anything less, Alex said, standing and pulling me into a kiss. You're Elena Torres. That's who I want to marry. NHE slid the ring on my finger, and it felt different than my first engagement. Not like a claim of ownership, but like a promise of partnership. Maya squealed when we told her the next day, immediately starting to plan a wedding that would be nothing like my first. Small ceremony, your design, your choices. No Patricia dictating every detail. Should I invite Richard? I asked. He's been reaching out occasionally, trying to rebuild some kind of relationship with Maya. Maya considered. That's up to you. I've forgiven him enough to occasionally have coffee, but I wouldn't call him family. He enabled Patricia for too long. I'll think about it. The wedding happened 6 months later in a garden outside Portland, with 40 guests who'd been carefully chosen. People who loved us, supported us, celebrated us. Maya was my maid of honor. Alex's sister stood up for him. And when we said our vows, they were ones we'd written ourselves. I promise to see you fully, I said, my voice steady. To celebrate your strength, not fear it. To partner with you, not control you. To choose you every day, not because I need you to complete me, but because you make my already complete life richer. Alex's vows echoed the sentiment. I promise to be your partner, not your owner. To support your dreams, not limit them. To love you exactly as you are, not who I wish you'd be. NWE didn't have a receiving line, or formal dinner, or any of the traditions Patricia had insisted on at my first wedding. We had food trucks, a playlist Maya curated, and dancing under string lights. It was perfect. Richard sent a card and a generous check with a note, wishing you the happiness you deserve. Thank you for giving Maya the courage to break free. It inspired me to do the same. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Patricia had served 18 months for financial exploitation and was now living in a small apartment in Tucson, estranged from both her children. Derek had married Simone, divorced Simone, and was apparently on his third marriage to someone 20 years younger than him. And I felt nothing when I heard these updates. No satisfaction, no vindication, just profound indifference. They were characters in a story I'd moved past, no longer relevant to my present. On my 38th birthday, 3 years into my second marriage, I woke up to Alex making breakfast, and Maya letting herself in with the spare key. Some traditions from our Portland apartment days had stuck. Happy birthday, Maya announced, Zeus bounding in behind her. We're doing the mountain hike, then that new Italian place, then I'm forcing you to watch the documentary I've been telling you about. Forcing is a strong word, I said, accepting coffee from Alex, strongly encouraging. Whatever. Point is, we're celebrating you existing because the world is better with you in it. Later, hiking the trail we'd climbed dozens of times, I thought about the woman I'd been 10 years ago. Elena at 28, desperate for belonging, willing to erase herself to be loved by the Morrison family. NIF. I could go back and tell her anything. It would be this: you are enough. Exactly as you are. Without modification or apology, you are enough. The people who make you small aren't your people. The love that requires you to disappear isn't love. Walk away. Fight back. Choose yourself. It will be terrifying, and lonely, and hard. But on the other side of that, fear is a life that's actually yours. The life you were meant to live was never going to fit inside the box they built for you. So stop trying to fit and start building your own life instead. At the summit, Alex took a photo of me and Maya with Portland spread out behind us, Zeus sitting between us like the world's worst behaved child. Perfect, Alex declared, showing us the image. And he was right. It wasn't a perfect life. I still had days where I heard Patricia's criticism or Derek's dismissiveness in my head. I still occasionally doubted myself, still sometimes asked permission when I didn't need to. NBUT, I was healing, growing. Building something real out of the rubble of what I'd lost. Maya squeezed my hand. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for saving me back. We saved each other. And best decision I ever made. NWE stood there together. Two women who'd been underestimated, controlled, and nearly destroyed. Who'd fought back, supported each other, and refused to stay broken. NTWO women who'd learned that sometimes the family you're born into is just practice for the family you choose. And the family I'd chosen, Maya, Alex, Kenji, the friends who'd stood by me, was everything I'd ever wanted. NNOT perfect. Not easy, but real, and that was infinitely better than the performance of perfection I'd been living before.